Hollywood sucks, and the reason why it sucks is it literally became the villain it sought out to destroy. Back then, Hollywood was just a ranch owned by this guy named Harvey Henderson Wilcox. And around the 1900s, I think it was the 1910s or something like that, a ragtag team of four, one of them being Charlie Chaplin, and if you're interested in the other three, it was Mary Pickford, Douglas Fairbanks, and a director named D.W. Griffith. The other three, that's not D.W. Griffith, were all actors. They decided to make a corporation called the United Artists Corporation because they did not like how the current corporations that were running these cinemas were pricing their stuff, were pricing film stock, were pricing distributing films. It was all overpriced. It sucked. So Charlie Chaplin and crew decided to head west to where there's less of this monetization and decided to make their own movies there. Decided to produce their own movies there. So I just find it ironic how Hollywood used to be this rebel sort of production company, and now it's the exact thing it wanted to get away from today. So this leads us to the conversation about all the type of movies that are being released these days. Adaptations, sequels, prequels, things that are names that are all familiar to us. And that includes these movies here. We got Dune, and by the way, we're talking about all the movies that came out last year. We got Dune, we got Tick Tick Boom, we got Matrix Resurrections, Kingsman or Kingsman 3, and West Side Story. Now, all five of these have something in common, and the thing in common is that these were all massively advertised. You saw these advertisements everywhere. You either saw them like downtown in billboards, or you saw them before a YouTube video played, or maybe even before your favorite Twitch streamer. You saw an ad for Dune, you saw an ad for Matrix Resurrections. Now, of course, there were a bunch of other films that came out in 2021 that were relatively original. In fact, here is all the movies that came out. There's Cherry, and there's Diary of a Wimpy Kid. That's like that's another thing we all know of. But anyway, lots of original ones. King Richard is technically an original one. It's a biopic, but it's still quite an original one. I don't think it's been made before. Just all of these other ones too. So like I said, King Richard is just a biopic starring our famous slapper Will Smith. Encanto came out as well by Disney, and there's Green Knight, which came out later on in the year, and then there's Coda, which honestly I didn't even hear about Coda, but yet here it is. It has won 3 Oscars. I'm living under a rock or something. Anyway, I picked these 4 because they all also have something in common as well. They're the exact opposite in terms of advertisement of the ones we mentioned before. They were barely advertised. So if you are a movie normie like me, you didn't really see much advertisement for a lot of things, especially if you allegedly run ad blocker. You're not going to see a lot of advertisements for a lot of films. But I definitely don't remember seeing a King Richard advertisement. I definitely don't remember seeing a Coda. Definitely not a Coda advertisement. I saw very minimal Encanto and very minimal Green Knight. And the reason why we saw not too much of the advertisement from these 4 movies is not what you think. And I'll explain it in just a bit. But before I do, I want to say that adaptations and remakes were always a thing. We can go back to these days in the mid-20th century. West Side Story was originally adapted from the Broadway musical in 1961. In fact, Dune was made in 1984, the original Dune. One of my most favorite directors of all time, Alfred Hitchcock, made Vertigo, and Vertigo isn't even original. A lot of people don't realize that it is because they typically don't look at the credits. In the beginning, it tells us, the credits tell us that this was an adaptation by a French novel called D'entre les morts. D'entre les morts. D'entre les morts. And of course, if you ever went to high school, maybe possibly in freshman year, you've read To Kill a Mockingbird, and as you probably know, it was adapted into this film here. And one of my favorite movies of all time, 12 Angry Men, this was actually an adaptation as well from a teleplay in 1954. So technically, quote-unquote unoriginal movies were always a thing. in Hollywood. People were always making these adaptations. People were always making remakes. And the best remake of them all is the good old MCU. Is the good old Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is probably like one of the most popular, most successful franchises of like film history. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is widely successful. We all know that. And the reason for that is because Marvel is a very, very familiar name. Of course, it has its roots of being a comic book company. It has its roots of distributing a bunch of comic books everywhere in the world. But one of the main reasons why the Marvel Cinematic Universe is so successful is because it's familiar. It's because people know about it. As a tangent, that's the reason why the Big Bang Theory ran for how many seasons? It ran for 12 seasons. Let's look at the Simpsons, which is still going today, I believe, right? It's going for 33 seasons. God damn. And then there's Family Guy. It's running for 20 seasons, and Friends ran for 10 seasons. I'm pinpointing these ones out because these are familiar names. And there's another way we could put it, is that these names have become comfortable. Especially because we learned to love these characters. We learned to care about these characters. So this concept of familiarity, of comfortability. So this idea of comfortability, of familiarity, is the main reason why movies like Dune, Tick, Tick, Boom, Matrix Resurrection, Kingsman, and West Side Story were so widely advertised. They're familiar names. Dune was a widely popular novel back then. Tick, Tick, Boom and West Side Story were big Broadway musicals. Matrix, I mean, come on. And Keanu Reeves, I mean, come on. And Kingsman, I wanted to bring this one up last because although it wasn't necessarily too popular, it's kind of like in the mid section of like popularity. You've heard the name The Kingsman, but it's not as popular as Dune. It's not as popular as Matrix Resurrection. And this actually brings me to a film that is called Green Book. I don't know if you guys remember Green Book, but the reason why it won a few Oscars, not only it was pandering to the white fantasy of going back to those days, and because a majority of the Academy is white and old as fuck, but it's because the advertising team did a phenomenal job in pinpointing places to advertise this movie. What happened with Green Book, it was advertised in places where Academy members were known to be around. It's kind of like subliminal messaging. It's kind of like egging on the, Academy members to be like, hey, have you seen this? Have you seen this? Have you seen this? And there's this psychology where it's like when you see a bunch of, Apple products being advertised all over the place. Man, it's getting this much advertisement. It must be, somewhat reputable. And Academy members being old and not really watching any movies, the chances are a lot of the Academy didn't really watch this movie. It's just that they saw a bunch of advertisement for this. And so they were like, well, I remember seeing this a lot. I didn't actually watch it, but it must have been good because I saw it everywhere. So I'm gonna vote for it. Now, not all of the Academy members did that, but that is what happened. Now, that's one of the main reasons why this production company, New Line Cinema, was widely popular. That's why a lot of New Line Cinema's movies were so popular. Like, look at this. There's Lord of the Rings. There's Conjuring. There was a Nightmare on Elm Street. Unfortunately, unfortunately, The Nun. Unfortunately, Mortal Kombat. Okay. Back then, like Blade, there was the original Final Destination. There's Conjuring 2. They had a lot of hits here. They got The Mask. Like, New Line Cinema has a bunch of like really, really loved movies. And the reason why they got so much success, the reason why Hobbit was so successful, is because New Line Cinema was so good at advertising. But here's the thing. Why were these movies widely picked more to be, pushed out to the masses more often than the other ones, like these ones, like Encanto, King Richard, Green Knight, and Coda? Why were these not as advertised? They were risky. They weren't safe. You see, these producers were really scared to take a risk because it's all investment, right? If you make a bad investment, you're going to lose money. That's why producers really loved pushing out West Side Story, Dune, because these are safe. This is a sure shot way of getting money through investing in these films, because people know these names, and with this familiarity, with this comfortability, this is already a guaranteed audience that is very likely going to see these films. And this really sucks, because I would have wanted to know when, the latest films, latest original films even, were coming out. Obviously, Coda, it won 3 Oscars. It must have been good. I mean, what's the rating? 8 out of 10? That's not bad. That's not bad at all. The only time I saw the Green Knight advertisements was when I went to the theater, and it was only in the theater. It was like the previews. That's all I saw it from. I probably saw it a couple times before tuning into a Twitch stream. You know how, advertisements play before pre-rolls and stuff. But that's about it. It wasn't around the city. It wasn't on billboards and stuff. Maybe one, maybe two, but not as much not as much as Dune. And Dune was mid. That's right. Part 1? Are you kidding me? I digress. Anyway, the reason why Hollywood has been on the decline for years is because producers are failing to risk more often. They're failing to want to take this risk because they're blinded by money. They're more worried about making their money back. They're more worried about making more money than they did before, rather than the actual integrity on how good a movie is. Like, let's go back to 2019. One of the best films that has ever been made, Parasite, was hardly advertised. I'm surprised that it won. It won the four big ones. It won. What did it do? Best film of the year, directing, screenplay, and best international film. It won some really big names, and I think it's just because it's just such a good movie. But it was hardly advertised. It was the same deal as The Green Knight. I mainly only saw advertisements in movie theaters, and that's about it. What I'm saying is that if Parasite was advertised as heavily as The Matrix Resurrection, as Dune, bro, producers would have made bank. I mean, they already do, but they would have made tenfold, bro. That's what I'm saying. But they're not. And moreover, tons and tons of people are missing out on good films like Parasite, man. And so it's tragic. It's tragic. Who knows what movies are out there that is the same caliber of Parasite, and it's never going to see the light of day. Not because it was never produced, not because it was never distributed, but because it's failing its advertisement. Only maybe like a small town will know that there is a movie the same caliber as Parasite. So, yeah, those are the main problems about Hollywood. That's why you've been seeing a bunch of remakes, adaptations, prequels, sequels. That's why we have the cinematic universe of Marvel. I don't know why I said it like that. See, it's spelled out cum as an acronym. Sorry. If we take away one thing from this video, can we stop saying MCU and start calling it CUM, the cinematic universe of Marvel? Yeah. That's why we have cum. That's why these very familiar names, that's why these very comfortable names are doing so good. That's why they're making the money. That's why producers are pushing these out more out in the world, because they know that the audience that is already familiar with the name is gonna go and watch it. Who cares about the ratings? It's all about the box office. It's all about the money. And that's why Hollywood sucks right now. That's why it has lived long enough to become the villain. I always wanted to talk about this. I've been wanting to, make this an official video. I wanted to go out to the park, but it's actually raining right now. So here I am. I kind of made this video like Mogul Mail, Ludwig style, Moist Critical Charlie style. But I really wanted to get that out there. This was kind of, impulse. And so here it is. It might be a bunch of jumbled mess, but I needed to get this out there. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching. If you came this far to the video, I want to see how many people did come far to this video. Just comment down below. Come. Just come. Yep. This is a test. This is a test. Anyway, like and subscribe as always. I'd mucho apreciado. And I will see you next time. Okay, goodbye. Goodbye. See you later. Bye bye. Bye bye.